John, man, I am so glad that you could make it here today.
Thank
This
you.
is super exciting. Man, I asked you Tuesday and it's Saturday and we're here today. So
Yes,
I really appreciate how quickly you just decided, you know what, I'm going to jump. You don't even really know as much about the podcast, but you're willing to give me a chance to tell your story. So I'm super excited.
absolutely.
I am a little bit jealous of you because, man, you look like Popeye the Sailor Man. And I went to the gym today and I was like, man, there's no way I could pull off what John's doing. At least I got time to pull it off. But man, you've held up pretty dang well. So,
Thank you.
so John,
Yes.
before we get started, and I didn't want to butcher your last name. So,
Okay.
before we get started, can you tell the audience what you do?
Okay. I'm a landscaper. I work with my son and my daughter-in-law. We have 7 crews, 8 crews, about 25 people, and we keep busy and we work hard. And we'll work 5 or 6 days a week. Just maybe typical American.
Typical American. Man, I got to, your son sent me, what do you call it? One of the pictures of the pool, the 16 by like 40. And he goes, man, I am so nervous right now. This is on the trailer and like, I need to get it there. And man, I'm just like, and he put his wife, like his wife was standing inside the pool. And I was like, this is like 8 foot deep pool. And it's a one piece. It's not your typical gunite, your concrete pour, that. This is a whole one piece, which is kind of crazy.
Absolutely. Yes. They're fiberglass, and we've been putting them in for about 15 years, maybe
You've been
probably
doing
15 years. Yeah.
I didn't know you were doing it so long.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done 40 to 50 pools. That's all
Yeah.
in 15 years. But we do that too. We pretty much do anything in landscaping. The difference between us and other competitors is we do all our work. We don't contract out.
Yeah.
So when people have a problem, they come to us, period. So
What's your
yeah.
warranty on that pool that you do?
What's the what?
What's the warranty on it?
The warranty is lifetime.
Lifetime warranty.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can't get that on ink.
Oh, you can't. You can't. And it's you know what? We actually enjoy putting pools in. I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, John, so the way I like to go is I usually like to start from childhood and then moving forward.
Huh?
So give me your earliest memories of kind of life as a child being John.
Okay. It's just maybe a bit of a sad story. So I had an overbearing father. I think he was overbearing because we didn't have much money.
Hmm.
He had to work 3 jobs. He worked his regular job. He parked cars Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and on Saturday and Sundays he worked putting in, glass doors, sliding glass doors, storm doors, regular doors. I think it had a profound effect on him, and he ended up. Boy, how do I sum it up? It was hard. It was real hard. It was trying, and so I don't want anyone feeling sorry for me. I'm just telling the facts. It was actually very hard. Yeah, it wasn't real good. And without going into a sad story, it also, I will say I'm not sure if I'm still over the profound effect that he left, but
Hmm.
he was mean. And well, let me put it to you this way. I blocked out almost everything that my father did because my brothers and sisters tell me how he whooped my butt pretty good, and I have no memory of it. But I do know I was deathly afraid of my dad as a child, and it plays an effect on you. But the good thing out of that is, I learned very young that I did not want to be like my dad, and it's turned me into a very kind and giving person. So that's good.
No, that is
Yeah.
amazing. Do you think his frustration or anger was like grueling hours? Like you said, 3 jobs. So
Hmm.
if you're working what 16, maybe even a little bit more
Hmm.
a day, and
Yeah.
you're just coming in
Uh-huh.
like every little thing
Yeah.
agitates you
Making peanuts.
and making peanuts. And so like you think that just kind of built up and
I do.
unfortunately you were kind of
I was the, what's it called, boxing bag, that
yeah.
the whatever that's called.
Mm,
And I feel sorry for my dad
mhm.
because he missed out on a good person, missed
Yes.
out on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let me share this with you. When I was 27 years old, I couldn't, if I was at a table with my dad I'm 27. I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid of them then, but it was so ingrained in me, I would start shaking and I'd have to put my hands under the table so I wouldn't be embarrassed that my hands were shaking. I don't even think anybody knew why they were shaking, or maybe nobody even noticed, but that's a pretty big, profound effect,
100%.
Yeah, and when I was about 35 years old, I wanted to put this behind me, and I didn't know how. And I was a pretty big guy back then. I worked out a lot. I was huge. I was strong. And I said, you know what? When I die and go to heaven, well, maybe I could God will let me meet my father when we're both 35, and then I'll tell that man, you want to hurt that child now? You hurt me first and see what happens. And that gave me relief for about, I don't know, 10 minutes, not really, maybe a half a year, but it didn't do it. It didn't do it. And so anyway, I was probably about 10 years later, I said to myself, I'm going to forgive my dad. And I asked God, God, please forgive my father for he not know what he has done. And that was a big step in recovery. Anybody listening out there, that within months, I was no longer angry. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't constantly thinking about it. Yeah, it really helped a lot. And I did. Like you mentioned, Coach, I think he was so overworked that he just did not realize what he was doing. If that's the case, I don't care if it's the case or not, but that's the case I got in my heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what was your then what about your mother? Like
My God, you talk about a saint.
hmm?
Jeez, I told her when she gets up to heaven, immediately start talking to God about me because I'm gonna need a little help. Yeah, she's a saint, man. She was battered a little bit too,
Okay.
unfortunately, and that's why.
Does that mean because did you like stand in front?
No, I actually am a little bit embarrassed of this, but the truth is, I was so afraid of my father that I would run and hide when he picked on somebody else. And that's not any, yeah, it's embarrassing, but it's the truth. Um, yeah, yeah, so no, I never stood up for the other kids. I never stood up for myself. I never stood up for my mom. But my mom's little, you know, breaches with my father were short. He wasn't. I found out many years later, many, many years later. I'll tell you this little story. I was probably 32, 33.
Hmm.
I wasn't married yet. And I'm going to preface this story with what I'm fixing to tell you, that I promised myself as a kid, probably very young, that I was never going to have kids until I could afford them. Because my parents were I would say very poor.
Yeah.
I mean, and so when I was young, I felt that he had to work so much and the whole story before, and if he could have afforded 4 kids, well, maybe things would have been better. So I promised myself as a very, very young kid that I'd never get married before I could afford children. And by George, I stuck to that.
Did. Okay.
I was 37 before I married for the first time. But now let me get back to this. I'm 30, 32, 33. I'm a big, big, big guy. I'm a short, big guy, very strong, probably lifted more than all of my friends and most people in the gym, and still a little bit afraid of my dad. And I went and visited my parents, and they had retired and moved to Florida. And we were on a golf course, and my dad started one of his little tantrums and was yelling at my mom like there was no tomorrow. And I got so angry, so angry. The first time I ever said anything, stepped up to him, was that day, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I looked back at my father and I said, knock it off. And I mean, yelling, and me do that? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I expected him to come running and tackle me, and I got ready for a fight, for
Yeah.
a fist fight. And you know what, Kush? You know what he did? Instead of this man that I was so afraid of come running at me and we getting into a fist fight, he goes, well, he started it. And I was like, wait, none of this is making sense,
You didn't
you
know what
know?
the next question or next answer or next word you're supposed to say.
I couldn't, I couldn't wrap that around my head. I was
Mhm.
so sure that he was going to come over, run and tackle me. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to hurt him. I'm just going to grab him, get him down, hold him down, till he calms down. And then he's talking like a child to me. That was the day that I learned a bully, maybe. I don't know, Coach, but it was a reckoning that day. And of course, from that day on, I was no longer afraid of him. But yeah, that was a big thing that day. That was the only time I stood up to him and realized that he is not this,
Big bad
animal
bully.
that's going to kill me
Yeah.
for what I did or what I said. But anyway, that's my dad.
It sounds like he sounds like he felt like it was it was due to somebody's fault of doing something, or like, you know, his way of saying like, it's not my fault I'm doing this, it's because of this person created a reaction from me.
Yeah,
And now that's really an excuse. I
yeah,
would never give that as a
I wouldn't either.
acceptance. But what I would say in what you just said, and because I know you, what you did pick up, and I don't know if you know this even, but I mean, you were just installing a pool before we got to this podcast. Okay, we're Saturday. If I call you at any day, it could be 8 o'clock at night. You're working on, hey, this new development. Hey, oh, I got this new one I'm working on. Hey, I got to get the drawings done, and then once I get that done, I got to go jump on. I got to go help these guys. They're
Mhm,
short-handed right now. Hey, my son needs me to come grab the trees,
mhm,
so I'm gonna go do that. Your son does this like, equally. Like you guys both, as a family, work incredibly hard, and I feel like as much as the difficult moments came into your life, I see it that based off you telling me 3 jobs and just like
yes.
it became a thing that's not even a. No, you're good.
That's Marshall. Let me put this on silencio. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So as I was saying, it's that little piece also became ingrained into your body, like in the sense that like hard work,
It did.
dedication is gonna be something that like, and that's the one positive. Like, and I don't know, obviously
No, for
additional, but
sure.
like that the hard work part is like
Hmm.
ingrained within you,
It
and
is.
just because I know of what you've done,
Uh-huh.
what you've done for me, what you do for so many different
Yeah.
companies and various people, so.
Hmm.
I mean, that's where I'll give that lining inside that
That's a
you are a
silver
hardworking
lining.
man.
You're
Yeah.
right. It is because I do, and I've always been like that. I we all work for money, of
Yes.
course, but it's so important to me that it is, I'll just say it, it's more important than money that whatever I do for like you, that you like that. And of course I care about the money, but it's so much more important that you like what I did and that you're happy the for making sure my customers are satisfied. And that I didn't never realize that, but you're right. It could be a silver lining from the younger years.
Well, I would say this too. Like you and your son, I typically don't like to work with second generation. And I'm a second generation in the business. I like to work with first generation, and my reason behind that is because the people that are first generation, they just have a love and a passion, and they want their quality of product to stand out. When you see the satisfaction of your client
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the product they received,
Mm-hmm.
and even if they just stood there for 10 minutes just looking at their yard or their pool,
Or
that is
whatever.
the utmost satisfaction you
That
get.
is. Yes.
And that's why I like working with first
Yes.
generation people.
You're right. You're right. And I can see that Marshall, that little quality that I've got. I don't know if it's apparent to you, but he's not willing to work like I used to work. And I applied it to the next generation, maybe more entitlement. Maybe I should have been harder on him because he doesn't get that part of it. And I want him to
Yeah.
be that way, but I have to accept that he's not.
But see, I would also say that, there's different methods to everyone's madness. I used to think, people who are more hardcore, straightforward, just raw, like they would, and like they come off with that really tough, rough demeanor. I would always think that those people, that you have to be that person in order to make it. But then when you actually go through and you see these people that are introverts and just, there are extroverts that are incredibly successful, but there's also introverts that are highly successful,
Mm.
highly intellectual, and they found a different method to make the same success, if not more, from that family. But the thing is, what most people lack is one, in the time they spend with their family. Two is the teachings of what happened in the past and what differences and changes you made for the future for them and as they decide to make their future choices. And third, by action. If your actions are lazy or limited or complaining or just it's somebody else's fault, well then that is the mind and demeanor you are feeding into your children and going forward. And so the thing is that what I said in the last podcast is that it's very rare that there are people that will change the course of their family life and the direction of the entire like direction, both whether it's in wealth, it's in family values and whatnot, as you did yourself. You just decided, hey, I'm only going to have a child whenever I can financially afford it. And then I will not treat my family XYZ way.
Mhm.
I will make the adjustments. And so you made those changes, but that doesn't negate like you saying like, well, maybe I should have been harder. But then you think, okay, well then because how tough my father was,
Mhm.
I am now needing to make that change again. So
And you don't
I
know
can
how
make
far to go. For me, it
exactly.
didn't.
I feel like no matter what age you are always in a learning position.
Mm.
No two children are the same. My son is not the same as my daughter. And, you know, I have not met anybody who has even multiple children that their children have the exact same qualities
Yeah,
as one another, even if they're twins.
we don't.
And so, with that said, I think you've put and ingrained the right stuff into your
Marshall.
children. Yeah, into Marshall. And so, with that, I think he just has a different method and he has a different happiness. Now, you are part of that creation of happiness.
Mm.
And so, I would look at it from that perspective. Things he does, he enjoys.
I love your positiveness, Kush. I do. You're taking a negative and turning it into a positive, and there aren't a lot of people that can do that, and that's awesome.
But you've done it.
And
I'm
I did
describing
too.
your story.
Okay,
This is
well,
not
thank
even my
you.
story.
But you are so on key.
Hmm.
You know, you are on key and taking all these things and even making me look at the positive about Marshall. Because sometimes I'm ready to wring his neck and I can't. He's 40 years old, you know. I mean, I can't. He's a grown man. But you're right. He does different things, and there can be positives from that too. He works hard, but I want him to work harder, I guess.
You want him to work to the level of your father did, and then that you saw, so then you did, and then that. But
Right.
see, you created opportunity
Uh-huh.
where from building from that, it's more of
Right.
who he knows and who he meets is
Yeah.
how he's able to grow the business.
Yeah.
It's from a different perspective. You were hands
Good
on,
point.
build up, right?
See, that's what
And you
I'm
built a
talking.
good team. You
Yes.
built a
Oh,
great
yeah,
team.
we did.
If you
We
didn't,
did.
I've worked with the right hand people. I'm like, well, of course you can do three projects because this guy can handle this and he's
Right.
trustworthy to do this.
That's right.
You're not stressing like, oh, I gotta get out there because
Right.
this kid will not do what I need him to do.
No. And in that sense, Marshall is on time, on key, and does it well. And I just, I'm so glad we did this today because you even gave me a new perspective on how to think about my son because he's not doing stuff the way I would do it.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I don't, I'm aware that I don't want to ruin anybody's happiness, I love to try to make someone else feel strong, so I'm real careful about, and in subtle ways, I'll let Marshall know, you're not working hard enough, and it
Yeah.
might be you just have to be in the situation and he told me something and I'll go, huh, well, Marsh, maybe, if you were there, and maybe this wouldn't have happened. What were you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's at home, and he would if he would have been there, maybe just little things like
Yeah.
that.
No,
But
100%.
you know what, Kush, I really enjoy hearing your analogy because you're so right. They, even though Marshall doesn't do things the way I would do them, he gets them done, and he's done one thing that I failed in, and that's being there for family. And because I was, shoot, I was so afraid when I first married his mother and I adopted those three kids. I was gonna make sure we had plenty of money and things were gonna go straight, I mean, well, because I did not want to end up short on money. I didn't want to lose any accounts. And then again, you could take that and look at another silver lining from my dad and what he did, and say it helped me make sure that the business was always going to be successful, which it has been.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, when I first married them, I was 37 years old. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I just married this woman and I got three kids to take care of. And, I used to work like that before they were there.
Mhm.
But even so, I did that. I did not stop that to be with them. And I look back on it and I said, oh, I should have spent more time with Marshall. He was dying for attention, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
And, and I was too, I don't know, because, when you grow up thinking your father hates you, to me, even when I had those kids, I'm thinking, let them be.
Yeah.
They don't want to do this with you. They don't want to do, and that's the way I was thinking. And then as we all melded together, I was like, you know what? I wasn't thinking clearly. Those kids, although I was new, they still wanted to be with me, but I kept my distance. I worked a lot, not on purpose, but like, I admired, what you're doing here with your son today. And I look at the little guy and it's just awesome to see that,
Yeah.
because definitely did not have that in mind. And then when I adopted these kids, Marshall was 11, Tamara was 8, Danielle was 5. They still didn't get that
Yeah.
from me for another 6, 7 years before, I realized what was going on. And I think if I had a little one at 0 days old, and it would have been totally different.
Yeah.
But, I fell in love with their mom, not with them. But of course, as time went on, it took a lot of time. But anyway, I guess I don't really know where I was going with that, Kush, but just that it's nice to see this right here. It really is. And, the one thing, here it is, the one thing that I didn't do was spend enough time with my kids
Hmm.
because I was working so much. But yet we weren't going to end up on the street. I could tell you that.
I'll give you that one too. So my family has felt that way. The time we spend with our children and whatnot, they feel like sometimes they've missed out on times. But the thing is, it was different times. And what I mean by different times, that these 80s, 60s, whatever,
Mhm.
it was more about the fact that you were in survival mode.
Right.
Whether you were actually needing to be in survival mode, your mentality was already there because you saw what your father was scraping by with and how much it affected him internally. So, in turn, you did everything. As my parents did, my parents also had very little to nothing. And my father was the black sheep of the family. So, my father was beat and, I mean, whipped good. So, like, that part I understand. And, at the same time, my father also changed his direction of his thinking. He could have repeated the same cycle as his father, but he raised me very
Right.
well. I'm very fortunate. though they may have not had the time to spend with us on a day to day, like by watching, by seeing, by learning, I have gained extreme knowledge from my father and my mother. I was raised very well. You know, they kept the family together. They did very good things that I'm very proud of. And so with them having to survive, I understand from your perspective too, but remember you were surviving. Whether you said, "Hey, you know what? We had plenty of money in the bank and whatnot," but your mind was under like, "I have got to make sure we are not on the street." See, you
It,
said that in the middle of this conversation. You said,
mhm,
"We will not be on the street." Why do you say that? Because you have that fear factor of it.
right.
So, though you could have spent more time here,
Mm.
your mind was like, if I don't
You
put time X, then what if my
what?
kids and my wife are also on the street?
Mm-hmm.
Then I just turned the whole thing backwards. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
where I look at it
Mm-hmm.
from what you're saying.
It, and that is what I did.
So,
That's exactly what I did.
and that's fair. And I
Yeah.
and I would tell you not to beat yourself
Yeah.
on that because you did something that helped the next generation
Yeah.
and your grandkids are also getting the benefit of what you put in.
Yeah. And it's so true,
Yeah.
because Marshall already at 40, Marshall's 40 years old. At 40, I just started accumulating wealth
Mm.
when I was 4, just started.
Yeah.
And then when I got into my mid 50s is when I was like, wow, I can relax.
Yeah.
I can, comparing that to where I was, and I'm now where Marshall is. Marshall's way, way, at 40, I was here and Marshall's already up here.
But you're the
So
stepping stone.
that's right. And
But
that's a
that's your
good thing.
purpose though.
That's right.
That's my purpose as a father, as my parents' purposes were for me. Like in our tradition, what we do is we build to leave something behind for our next generation to build off of and go forward. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what tends to happen is, you've probably heard the phrase, hard times make strong men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Strong men make good times make weak men make hard times. So it's a
It's
recycling
a
system.
right.
So no matter what you try, like there'll be moments in life that'll happen. Your best thing you can do is one, teach them about the past of what you went through, how difficult it was to make it there. Now what we enjoy, what's the effort that you have to put in to get what you want out. And so if you can resell that and not resell, help everybody understand
Share
on
it.
the next generation, then your family has a better opportunity to continue the growth process. Now, the moment, there's always a chance that it will fall off. More times than not, it's going to fall off. But the thing is that if the right teachings come in, you have a better opportunity for them to come back from whatever they may fall into. And that's our goal.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
It's well put. It
So
really is.
okay, so that affected you quite a bit of your life. That's over
Yeah.
half your life. That's really
Yeah.
that grabbed you.
Yeah. And let me just sum this up now with my dad. My dad's passed away like 4 years ago on Christmas Eve. Okay. And he, for his last 10 years of his life, he had Alzheimer's. Okay. And unfortunately, it had to be Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's turned him into one of the kindest, gentlest American people that I've ever met. He went from one of the meanest to one of the kindest, gentlest, loving, caring Kush. And so when if the conversation comes up, for whatever reason, I don't know, you're golfing and someone says something, and I can honestly look at someone in the eye, and although it was just for about 7 years, I could tell them, yeah, my father was one of the kindest people I ever met in my life. And that's nice to say that,
Mhm.
and but it's just pertaining to the last 7 years.
Were you financially stable at the time?
Yeah, he was. My mom and dad had nothing when they started for quite a long time, but my dad ended up getting a good job probably when he was about 40. And he was what he did is he built glass buildings in New York City. I was
Hmm.
born and raised in New York, not the city, in the mountains. And my dad would travel back and forth from the city, not every day, but wherever the job was. It could have been anywhere in the Catskill area. But anyway, he got into the union and he made, good money. I don't know what it was back then. It would sound like peanuts now, but
Yeah.
back then he made good money and he got a pension and he got his insurance and the pension he had when he retired, the insurance followed him. He unfortunately he fell off a ladder when he was I'd say 60 at work. And um anyway, I hate to say this, but because I couldn't say I hate to say it. Here's what I know about it. I don't know who was at fault, what happened, but something happened that shouldn't have happened. And if the safety procedures were followed, he wouldn't have fell. He ended up absolutely crushing his ankle. And they had just had ended up fusing his ankle together. Well, anyway, he won a lawsuit. Okay. And back then, it was a lot of money. It was for like $750,000
Yeah.
is what he got. And back then, my mom and dad, with my mom, had a small pension because she worked in the telephone company.
Mhm.
And her insurance followed her. My dad's insurance, they had, by the time they retired, had everything paid off. They had their pensions. They had saved a little bit. They knew a guy that was, this is going to give you a bad thought about the family, but it's just one guy and they were friends. And my dad had nothing to do with the mafia, but he was, from what I heard, was in the mafia. Well, anyway, I think, got some insider trading. I have no idea. I have
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
no idea if I am correct. But all of a sudden, my parents got invested. Oh, back then, I don't really know how much it is, $10,000, $20,000, and they doubled or tripled their money like that, you know. And so between that, the lawsuit, their pensions, they lived a very, very, normal American life toward the end. They had plenty of money, so they really went from peanuts to, for them, the penthouse.
Yeah.
You know, they
Hmm.
did. And a couple things happened, the accident wasn't a good thing, but it happened. He fell, got hurt, got the lawsuit. I'm not sure, like when I broke my neck, someone told me, man, John, you could sue Wolf Creek. And I looked at him, I said, no. No, I was in the wrong. I was going too fast. I should have never been going that fast.
Hmm.
And I am not going to sue them because a snowboarder was involved. And I didn't even know about this, but they're trying to get snowboarders off the mountain. And, they said, you could sue them. I was like, no, I ain't suing. And my point there is, I hope that's, my father's lawsuit, you know, they didn't get something for nothing. I
Yeah. Yeah.
don't know. But my point, and with the, well, I wasn't going to do that.
Mhm.
I'm not going to do that. If I was not in the wrong, well, maybe I'd think about it.
Yeah.
But when you're going 50 miles an hour down a hill with a bunch of people, you're culpable. And I'm more than willing to admit that. But back to my dad, he did get that. And so my mom and dad were able to leave a real peaceful life their last 20, 25 years, which was real nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's move towards who were you in high school? Like your personality, like the guy that everybody hung around, or were you the guy in the books? Were you a ladies' man? What was your
I was none of those, unfortunately. If I could go back to college or high school now, I would have been well, I don't know about the ladies, man, but I would have been in the books. I'd have put my nose to the grindstone. And in high school, unfortunately, I was the guy that was off in the corner. I didn't want to deal, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to do, in fact, we'll just touch on this. My wife happened to find a bunch of pictures and we found one of my report cards from kindergarten, from kindergarten. And on the report card, it said, your son is very withdrawn. He needs help. And I saw that and I was like, my God, that's kind of sad.
yeah.
Yeah. And my point is, that had a lot to do with my dad. And I ended up, anyway, we already talked about that. So anyway, in high school, I had more confidence than I did back in grade school, middle school. I threw myself into the skiing aspect because we
Hmm.
lived in the mountains, and I developed a love for skiing that just, I guess, comes from the heart. It's just something that was in me. I didn't force it there. It was just there. So I got a lot of confidence from that. So in high school, I was a guy that kind of hung back, wasn't bad looking. So if a girl liked me, they'd have to tell my friend would have to tell me, and then I'd say something to her. I mean, I was just that way. I just stayed back. That's what I did. And then the grades, I could have done better than I did. I had a reading disability that back in the day we knew something was off, but nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
So I had to study hard, and I did that once I became interested in skiing and racing. I realized that I have to get my grades up if I'm going to be on the ski team.
Mm.
So there's a great big positive thing. And so in high school, I believe it or not, this guy that got B's and C's and just squeaked by was now in honors classes. So it was from just a lot of work. It didn't come easy for me. My sister, take her for example.
Mhm.
She could read a book that thick in a night. It would take me 2 weeks to read that. Maybe not 2 weeks, but you get the
Yeah.
idea. And smart as a whip. And my brother Danny, he was one smart little whippersnapper too. And came school came real easy to them, but school came real hard to me.
Yeah.
Just like you were saying, no two kids are the same.
Yep.
And if that ain't the truth, I don't know what is. But yeah, it came real hard, but I studied a lot, and skiing got me there. Skiing was what would you say, Kush? My solid wall to lean on.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good things came from it, and that was one of them. So yeah, no, but definitely not a ladies' man. Yeah, I was like Mr. I don't know,
Yeah.
just didn't want to take the chance.
But did it make you more vocal? Did it make you like because you did sports after that? Did it get you
It
to?
did. Skiing gave me a lot of confidence, Kush, and it penetrate into women at all.
Yeah.
Uh, but as far as it gave me a whole lot of confidence to do a whole lot of different things.
Hmm.
And then, once I got into college, it really shone through. And I mean, or shined through. But, like when I graduated college with a 3.7 average
You
and
said you weren't that good at school. 3.7 average.
3.7.
That's a pretty darn good. And
Yeah.
back then they
Yeah.
didn't go to five or whatever they go to now.
Well, I don't know what they went, but it went to
Yeah, I
4.
went to four. Yeah,
Yeah.
even when I went to four. Now.
And I did. But I studied hard,
Mhm.
studied real hard. And I happened to have a girlfriend during college that was very motivated, very smart. And we kind of inspired each other, but we ended up going separate ways. But yeah, we were very close. She helped me, I helped her. And, it was almost like a competition, who's going to do better here? And that's a great thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, did you ever have like what was your friend circle like?
My what?
Your friends, like your group of friends
Oh,
that spent.
Coach, I always, even through high school, had such, if I had a friend
Hmm.
and, I wasn't one of those guys that could be friends with everybody. I was one of those guys that, and hey, some people say, well, you were cliquish. Well, that isn't the way I saw it. I had these friends here, and, in high school, this is funny, we were all on the ski team, and, we were all good looking guys. And the girls tagged us the squad. But my guys were my friends, and some of them I'm still staying in contact today. We're all over the United States. And then in college, I had one really good friend, and he never left Vermont. I went to school at Calhoun State College in Rutland, Vermont, and he's a lawyer, and as you know, this guy talk about smart. Oh, good. He was light years smarter than me. I mean, just and he was so, normal, not arrogant. He was probably the smartest kid that I knew in
Hmm.
that college. And yet he was like me, down to earth, wanting to have fun, wanting to smile and laugh and and do our work and yeah and anyway, his name was Jesse Bugby, and in fact he married a girl from the ski team. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
one of the girls. Yeah, my best friend married a girl from the ski team,
High school
and
sweetheart.
was that
High school sweetheart.
high? No, well, not high school, college.
College. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, he did. And she was pretty smart too, but Jesse now is kind of a big wig in the Vermont. I don't know if I want to say politics, but at least the judicial system there.
Okay.
Yeah, just really, really, but he was smart. Yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, and but so in high school, I had a great set of friends. Jesse, he was pretty much the only, I had my girlfriend, and that's kind of what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was with his girlfriend, I was with my girlfriend. We'd go here or there, whatever. Other friends at the ski team friends. Well, my brother Danny ended up coming my last year in college. He ended up coming up there, and he was 4 years behind me. So it was his second year because I went to school for 5 years, and I did get a double degree. But so Danny ended up there, and Danny, Danny was gay, and so after college, we kind of our bond never. In fact, well, let me finish. The bond we had was just as tight as could be on a brother. He was
Yeah.
he was always my best friend, period. But it was hard to do things with him because his life was so different from mine.
Yeah.
With he now you want to call, like don't call him, like I had to laugh and he asked if me was a ladies man, but my brother Danny
Uh-huh.
was a ladies man from day, and he wasn't gay when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he anyway, he ended up gay, and so, it was hard to do things. Plus, he lived in the city. I didn't like the city. He didn't like the rural where we are here.
Yeah.
And but yet we stayed tight, and just to show you how tight we were, unfortunately, when my brother was, well, this was probably 15 years ago, my sister called me up and told me that, John, he goes, do you know Danny's got a drug problem up there? And I go, no. And I said, I thought something was off because I called him for a year and a half
Hmm.
and didn't really think nothing of it. But that's a whole nother story because this is a funny one. But I ended up calling the wrong number because he changed his numbers. I never knew. And I left messages for a year and a half for my brother. And but anyway, it just at the spur of the moment like that, I left Amarillo on the next plane out, went up to New York, found him, and picked him up and brushed him off and brought him back to Texas and helped him clean up. My sister, with my sister Tony's every day calling him, got him to, because he was a one sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, something got there. But anyway, Kush, yeah, I spent a good day or so, day and a half, looking for them. And Kush, boy, when someone is hooked on meth, it is unbelievable. When I finally convinced him to come with me that day I found him, we got on the subway, and he's like this in the subway. He goes, John, get it open. And I go, what? He goes, there's books all over. And so I did that on his shirt. And I go, they're gone, Dan. I said, oh, thank you, thank you. Can you imagine that?
No, I mean,
This is a guy that's a PA smart as a whip. And he's like in that panic mode. And then I got to his house and he thought that there were cameras in the air conditioning vents. He thought the little that builds up around a tub when you're a guy and you don't clean it enough. He thought that was a poison that his ex-boyfriend was planting in there. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, Dan was my best friend and had a great group of kids in high school. My friends were those four I told you about. And we were one solid group for a long time. And
Didn't
yeah,
something happen to one of the guys
it did.
in
Mm.
an unfortunate?
Yeah, in my last year in high school, my one of my good friends, in high school, had like the squad. He
Hmm.
wasn't part of the squad because he didn't ski, but he was with us, all the time.
Yeah.
His name was Scott Solomon, and talk about another smart guy. This guy, my God, he was just incredibly smart. Anyway, we all decided we were going golfing. We all were back. No, some of us were back from fake vacation for the summer.
Hmm.
Some of us just graduated. And anyway, we were decided we were going to go golfing. So we all jumped in Scott's brand new truck because he was a little bit older than us, and he just got on with the New York State Police. This guy could have been the attorney general in New York if he wanted to be. That's how smart he was.
Oh,
But
wow.
he was going to start out and just be a police, and he had aspirations of being a lawyer maybe later. But anyway, he was just enjoying life, got out of college very fast, became a state police guy, and bought a new truck, and it was a Toyota. He bought a yellow Toyota, a brand new. So we all piled into that yellow tornado Toyota and went to and my father he knew the owner of, you probably never heard of this, but it's a Concord Hotel
Hmm.
in Monticello, New York, and he would go do the owner's windows when he needed new windows or one got broke or whatever. But it was Mr. Parker owned it.
Hmm.
Don't never met him, but he gave my father permission for my father and his family, me and my brother, to golf there anytime we want. And how the other guys got permission, I'm not sure. Good.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they really did. But anyway, we all went to the maintenance barn, got out of the truck, and grabbed our bags, and one guy carrying a cooler of beer, and everybody got messed up except me. And that had to do with, even in the summer, I'm training for skiing, Kush.
Yeah.
I am. And so I got in my mind that, drinking beer and, getting drunk isn't conducive to, my schedule for staying in shape for skiing.
Your passion was way bigger than the drink that you could have.
Hmm. That's right.
So you
That's
had to
right.
drip it.
The passion was that it was a passion, skiing.
Hmm.
And it carried me to a lot of good, probably even to where I am now. But anyway, so we're at the golf course and it's a 6-hole loop where the maintenance
Hmm.
barn was. And I didn't realize it, but they were drunker than skunks. And so there's a great big puddle there because it was a dirt road. And one guy pushed the other guy in the puddle. And that was my good friend, Rob Vanetten. Scott pushed him in the puddle. Well, then Tom Porter pushed Scott in the puddle. And then Scott and Rob were in that mud puddle wrestling around. And, we're laughing our butts off. And even me not being drunk, it was hilarious,
Yeah.
because they're all mud. They're just full of mud. And then finally they stop, kind of, and so now their clothes, their shorts are brown, their shirts brown. Anyway, so now we're fired up though. We were a fired up group of boys, and Scott's in the driver's seat and Rob Vanetten's in the passenger seat, and they're both soaking wet. And we're the four of us were in the back there, and because just a one, no double door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, the four of us are in the back in the bed, and Scott leans his head out and he goes, "Who wants to go four wheeling?" Of course, we're like, we are gonna go four wheeling, and we went down this road, and it was fall away like that, Cush. Usually it's a bang,
Yeah, yeah,
and Scott was drunk. And if it was now or even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, well, at least, yeah, 20 years ago, I guarantee you, I'd have been saying, no, Scott, get out of the seat. I'm driving because I
yeah,
was
yeah,
in, but it didn't happen back then.
yeah,
Yeah, Mothers Against Drunk Driving was about coming around at that point. Well, anyway, he went around that and that, you know, unbanked turn and he got in the ditch and then he popped out and then he went into the other side. And this is a back road. There wasn't
yeah, yeah.
anybody on it.
Right.
Anybody. No one even drove by after the accident. And anyway, he ended up back on the its regular side of the road and his front wheel and his back wheel now are in this ditch, and this ditch is about that deep, and he couldn't get the wheel out,
Hmm.
and we're doing about 30 miles an hour, and then something, I don't know how it happened. It's a biggest freak accident, but at the drop of a dime, boom, at 30 miles an hour, the truck spun and it got caught on a pole somehow. And when it got caught in the truck, the lateral pole on the chain link fence snapped and it came through. They used to have vent windows. You ever have a car with a vent window, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
roll down?
yeah.
It came through the vent window and right into his chest and went out the back of his chest and drunk driving. And he didn't even know it was in him. He started yelling and he grabbed it like this and he goes, guys, get this off me. So then we had to push the truck to, how it was in that ditch. And there was five of us pushing that truck and we got it. The ditch is like that. And the
Yeah.
wheels, well, here, we got it up. It felt like it was here and we just couldn't push anymore and it went right back down. And that pole had to go right back down in him, Cush. And that
So the
was
pole came out, and then
he was still stuck in here. Us five were pushing on the truck outside, just pushing on a wheel well. One guy was pushing in the front, couldn't get to the other. Another guy to open up a door and was pushing on the door. And we got it, so now the wheel comes up, and we got it up to here. How much the pole came out as we got it up was not enough for him to slide out. Well,
yeah,
he just thought it was on him. He had no idea
it was
that it
through him.
went through him. Yes.
He
There
was in
wasn't a
shock.
drop of blood, Cush.
It wasn't a drop of
Was
blood.
not a drop of blood on that pole, when we looked at him. So we all thought it was just impressing on him or pressing on him.
Yeah.
And so then it got up to there, and then we couldn't push no more, and the truck came back down. And whatever point that pole came out of him, it wasn't all the way. It went right back in again. And then
Was
the
the blood on
next,
the backside?
what's that?
Was it on the backside, or there's no blood that came through?
Well, we couldn't see the back,
Yeah,
but we could see the front
the front.
because he was like this in the chair.
Okay.
And the pole was right there in him. Well, we thought it was on him because he said, "Get this off me, not out of me,"
Yeah.
And anyway, so we all thought, he slid out in the pole, and then he was still yelling, get it off me, and it's panic time, so that
And no
second,
cell phones.
no cell phones, Kush. No. And the second time we got it up and got it out. And then we saw the damage and it was, he was lying on the floor. One of probably the best friend, Bob Peters, that I had in my life had Scott, he was kneeling down and had Scott kind of on his thighs and his head on his chest. And boom, every time, boom, boom,
Is
the
shooting
blood would
outward.
just boom, 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 and pumped all his blood out. And they said in the paper that Scott died immediately. That was baloney. It probably took him a minimum of 20 minutes to die and maybe even 30. What happened was I was probably the best shape of anyone. So I went running down the road and didn't know where I was going, but I knew there were no houses the way we came. So I went running down the road and probably, gosh, I don't know. Luckily, it was downhill, so I could, run like a deer back then.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even hard to do. But on the first house I came to, I was knocking on the door. No one would answer. And I was yelling, I need help, help, help. And nothing. So I went to another door, or probably another, I don't know how far, Kush, I really don't, but the next house down, maybe, 200 meters, maybe 800 meters, I don't know. And then knocked on her door, and there were lights this time. So I didn't give up. And I just knock. And I'm just yelling, we need help. It's an accident, blah, 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 blah. And, um, and then this lady came and she opened up the curtain and she goes, "No, no, it's a Sabbath, you know." It was a Saturday night, and I guess in her religion, they aren't allowed to get out of the house or maybe open the door. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of Jewish people up there.
Yeah.
And I told her no, 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 and then but she ended up opening the door. And then I was able to make a phone call to, I don't know, I don't even remember who I called. I don't, did they have 911 back then? Because if they did,
I
that's
wouldn't
who I
know.
would have called. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember she let me in. I made the call. And then by the time I ran back up there, and now I'm running uphill. So it's like, oh my God, but I don't remember if I ran the whole way or not up the hill. But anyway, when I got back over there, three of the guys grabbed me and they go, "No, John, don't go there. Don't go over there." And I was like, "No, no, let me alone. Let me alone." And anyway, big older got away from them and went there and they came and got me and they wouldn't let me, they wouldn't, I never did see him and he died a couple minutes later after I got back up there. And Bob had him the whole time. And to this day, Bob is one messed up individual.
From that event.
I don't know if it's from that or, he got into drugs from that event, but one way or the other, that event affected him. He had him and just slowly watched his good friend die by just watching the blood pump out of him. And so it was probably hardest on Bob. And anyway, it was hard on us all, but Bob took the brunt of it, and his father was a doctor, so he was thinking, well, maybe I could do something
Yeah.
for him, and then it just was a really bad, a really bad time or extremely bad day. And, again, took a little bit to get over that. In fact, you know, I don't have it anymore. Several years from the day it happened. I've had a dream, I don't know how many times, and we're young and we're all at a party. All the guys that were there that day were all at a party and probably 50, 60 people in this house. Yeah, we're all doing what we do. And then I look up and there's Scott. He's walking down the stairs and he has two girls on his side. And I'm looking and I'm going, it was so real. That's the thing. And I'm going, and I'm kind of talking to myself, how can this be? And he's walking down and he's looking me dead in the eye. At me, at everybody. And then all of a sudden I see a little bit of blood, kind of wide, but not running, but going very slow, coming out of his nose. And when he gets down to me, the blood, of course, started there, ends up about right here. And then he looks at me and he goes, "John, why didn't you push harder?" God, Kush, wake up right there every time.
Wow.
Yeah, that to tell me that ain't something about guilt.
Oof.
Yeah, and that's just the kind of guilt you feel, you know? I mean, he was my neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lived about three-quarters of a mile away. No, he lived a half mile away. Bob lived three-quarters of a mile away,
Hmm.
and it's all this rural area, and but yeah, we lost Scott, man. That was a hard day. And that's,
What life lesson did you grab?
my
Did you grab any life lesson on?
You know what? The only thing I really learned that was exactly when There are Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Are you old enough to know about
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mad.
Yes. And I can tell you this, not one of my friends ever drove drunk again. In fact, we had a party at my house last weekend,
Hmm.
and Rocky, Rocky, remember Landon's helper?
Yes.
He's a very, very good, nice guy. And he came over, and it was probably about 1:30 in the morning, and he gets up. I go, "Where you going, Rocky?" He goes, "I'm going home." I said, "Really?" I said, "Guess what?" He goes, "What?" "I'm driving you."
Yeah.
I got in his. In fact, he tried to pull a quick one on me too, because I don't know what I did. Maybe talked, and I go, "Where's Rocky?" And they go, "Well, he." I said, "Oh, no, no, no," and I ran out, and he was in his driver's seat fixing to drive home.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, cuz yeah, he was that close. And I don't think he would have died or anything, but on the way I was driving his truck, and I had Dietrich, another worker that you don't know, good friend first, and he was following me, and we're just driving down this road in between vineyards and like what is that, River Road, no street lights, no nothing, it's
Yeah.
very dark. I get probably, I don't know, 60, 80 feet from the gun. I'm only doing about 30. This
Yeah.
is a back road. And all of a sudden, a car puts its lights on, and it's in my lane facing my way. And I'm like, but I was not drunk. So it was startling, but it was very easy to evade him.
Yeah.
And Rocky, I don't know, maybe he's an
Wouldn't have evaded him. 100%.
right, because he wouldn't have realized what that was till he was right on him.
Yeah.
So that was a really good feeling for me that night that I got Rocky home straight, safe. And yeah, I did think of Scott that night, that minute actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. But so that was about the only life lesson other than the day that he was buried. No, that's not it. Not the day he was buried. It was after he got buried. There was a song playing on the radio that I'll never forget. I don't know the name of it, but it could be played right now and I would know it like that. And when after we went to the funeral, we went into this bar, and as we walked into the bar, guess what? That song was
Song came
playing.
up.
Now, I mean, it's just a little bitty thing, but it was,
It's
Scott's
imprinted.
good. I mean, coincidence, maybe.
Yeah.
I look at it as
As a positive sign.
Scott's way of saying, God's way of saying Scott's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's pretty wild though,
Yeah.
but that's what happened.
So we'll shift over.
Okay.
Since you're big on skiing,
Oh yeah.
right? You're big in skiing.
Yeah.
You're at peak condition. You made a run for the Olympic ski team.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a run. It was there's no tryouts for the Olympic ski team. Like you'd have a football,
Yeah.
there's what you have to do. So it was a run of many years. In fact, 5 years. No, 6 years. Because I was
All during college?
all during college and my last year of high school. And my last year of high school, no, it was my junior year in high school. My junior year in high
Hmm.
school, I won the New York State giant slalom championship, and that was a big deal. And it was like here in Amarillo, Brandon Slay or something like that. Years ago, he won the state championship in wrestling in his weight class, and well, he ended up going to the Olympics as well. Did you? If
No, I
you,
didn't know that.
you
No, I didn't know that.
yeah, and he can't remember what he did, but he ended up, if he I don't think he won the Olympics, maybe he came in third. We could look it up probably, but my point is that's what I won as a junior.
Yeah.
Okay. And so an accolade to that was that I got to race at a race in Old Forge, New York. How I pulled that up, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
but it was Old Forge, New York. And I needed to win that race to be able to get a berth on the American ski team that raced the Canadians.
Yeah.
Okay. It's different from the U.S. American ski team that's part of the Olympic program,
Mhm.
but that's next step is over here. Okay. So I made it. So I got a chance and I was like, oh man, cool. So anyway, went to that race and did everything I possibly could to be ready for it. And I took my run and I ended up coming in second, which kind of, at first was very depressing. But the guy that won it was already on
The Olympic team.
no, not the Olympic team, but the Canadian American ski team. That's what I'm trying for.
Yeah.
So I got a berth there. I was able, since he was already on the team,
Yeah.
I didn't win the race. I didn't come in first, but I came in second, and he's already on the team, the Canadian American team. I got a berth, and I took advantage of that.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I can tell you this, the first race that I was there, I was so proud that I was John Lauferswiler, USA. And I'll never forget that. Of course, there were no cameras back then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, telephone cameras.
Yeah.
Um, and I just stood there for a moment and
Took
looked
it
at
in.
that man and just said, man, wow. And that particular race, I obviously didn't kick butt. Otherwise, I would have remembered. But I was there. I was on the team. I was, I was in my mind going places, man.
Yeah.
And that's as a junior in high school. Then, my senior year came around, and I had when the state meet came up for high school.
Uh-huh.
I still skied on raced on my whole school team, but there were other races that were called Eastern, and it was an organization where you got points. I finally now with these races with the Can-Am,
Yeah.
you get points, okay? And the lower your points got, you'd start with like 100, and the lower your points got, the better your chances are for getting invites to whatever races.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course the Olympic team, but everyone on the Olympic team had negative points. They were the best of the best,
Yeah.
man. And so anyway, I started accumulating points, so I didn't race in the New York State the New York State
Yeah.
race, because I was off chasing points to get my points lower. So then, that went okay. I never really absolutely kicked butt. I was still young though. I was still in high school, but I was able to get my points down, 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 down. And anyway, so now I'm graduating high school and I get an offer to Norwich, not an offer for a scholarship to Norwich University in New York, and it's a military school. And the way I am now, I would have jumped on that push with both feet
Why is that?
because I love the military. I love being a patriot. I could support my country. I could do all these things that I regret not serving my country. I regret not joining the Air Force for at least 4 years of my life and giving those years to our country. And I do. I regret that. When I was young was the end of the Vietnam War. I'm not making
Yeah.
excuses.
Yeah.
I'm just giving facts. It was the end of the Vietnam War, and the military had a horrible, horrible reputation.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't want nothing to do with that, and I wasn't smart enough to see through that. Go back to any other war, wherever. The military. You know, I just salute those guys, gave their lives for our country, our freedom. And I salute them. I don't know where they got their bravery from. especially the 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24-year olds, man, that
Yeah.
died in World War II for us, you know.
Yep.
And I was such a mess, you know, that I don't know if I could have done that. I mean, they, that would have just scared me to death, man. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, yeah. No.
And
I mean, that was a horrifying war. So,
oh my
like,
God, coach. And then these young guys gave their life. So now, if I could, you know, it's now, and I'm 18, and they offer me scholarship at Norwich with what I know now, I would take that and be one of the proudest peacocks around, you know. And but it wasn't like that, and it wasn't to be. And then I spent a year squandering, and you know, kind of put the whole thing on hold. And then my second year of college, I realized my first year I'm messing up. And I went to this college in Rhode Island and did very well, but got out of there as soon as I could. And I applied to where I ended up, Castleton State College. And then, you know, it was only a Division II school, not a Division I,
yeah.
but I got an invite to go to the NCAA championships my last 2 years. And unfortunately, I fell both times. I ate it. And
Was it out of nervousness? Was it?
no, it just, you know, look, I don't know why this is, but there were so many good guys. Like, even when I was in 11th grade and I won the New York State championship race, there were 20 guys that could win it like that, including my teammate, Rob Vanetton. And I mentioned him before. He was one of the guys in the tussle in the mud. Yeah. And he was half of the races during high school, I'd win, half he'd win. And, you know, we were both that good. And he could have won that race like that. I could have won that race like that. And this is kind of a little fun fact. I was rated way up there, and you know they're going to send the top 20 guys in the state down the course first because it's an advantage,
Yeah.
and you want your best people, you know, to do their best, you
Yes.
know, and it's like that now in the Olympics, every race you'll see. But anyway, I was lucky enough to be well, I was about the sixth or seventh person down. And what was going on was weird. My coach was up there with me, and they'd get like three gates into the race, and you could still, and the starter guy and his buddies would be yelling, "Stop, stop, stop." And the guy would stop, you know, because the clock didn't work. And so I realized that, you know, first, second, third guy, no big deal. Fourth guy, they called fifth guy. Now, when it's my turn, six or seven, I said, Gary, his name was Gary Pavlik. I said, Gary, I said, when I get into this mode that when I'm in there, Kush, I mean, everything is blocked out. Everything. There, you could drive a Mack truck alongside me. I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to hear it. And I told Gary, I said, Gary, I said, if that happens to me, I said, I'm not going to hear it. I promise you, I'm not going to hear it. And he goes, "Oh, you'll hear it. You'll hear it." Well, it happened to me. And I got about halfway down the course, and there was a mogul in the course, a bump. Okay. And I mean, and I'm going down, and that thing, and I was like, "Oh my God," you know, and I mean, I lost. You know, I lost all kinds of time. And I was like, oh my God. And then I tried 10 times harder to make up, ended up going way too fast, skiing out of the course. And I just luckily I didn't finish the race from that point. I finished but I went through the finish line.
Yeah.
So since I went, and it didn't even dawn on me, you know, that my time might not have counted. But since I went through the finish line, I was sitting there and standing there, and I was pissed. Go, you know, go, go, you get another run. I was like, what? And I was like, yeah, the time. And so I got my butt up there, but by the time I got back up to the mount on the lift, back up the mountain, I was probably like 40th or 50th now. So my odds, because it gets rutted. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Kush. But I knew where that bump was. And when that came up, boy, I soaked that up like it was, nothing. And, ended up winning, winning the race. That's when I won that bump. The thing that threw me for a loop on that race. I soaked it up. I knew it was coming, Kush. And that's what I say. Any one of those 20 guys that went down that day, they could have won the race. Any one of them, and there were, but anyway, I won it.
Yeah.
So that's the way it went. So then now we're back in college and I'm accumulating points. And that was the NCAA. I could have gotten more points there or lost more points there, but I did either year and I crashed both times. It wasn't, what I was going to tell you is that for some reason, and for nothing more than luck, it didn't matter to me if it was a hometown race or the biggest race I ever got in.
Uh-huh.
I would perform the same.
Really?
And the pressure never got to me. And I can't even tell you why. Couldn't tell you why. And in golf, I became a decent golfer and played in little tournaments here.
Hmm.
But maybe when you're really, really good at something, there is no pressure,
Yeah.
because I was okay in golf, but I had to try so hard and I wasn't the best, but, and I would cut under pressure in golf. And then I thought about that. Why didn't I show, because I won races that I probably shouldn't have won, but anyway, and by the time I graduated college, I didn't get an invite to the Olympic practice squad. And that's what I was shooting for. And that was devastating to me. What I'd like to do is take a break
Sure.
and then pick right back up.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let's do it.